Well, these allegations about a bid by the Trump administration to push through the transfer of nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia is the latest example of how the US president apparently sees his relationship with the kingdom. Saudi Arabia, you may remember, was the first country he went to after being sworn in. He's boasted about what he describes as more than $100 million worth of arms sales to Riyadh. And despite a growing controversy over the Saudi-led war in Yemen, President Trump has stonewalled attempts by Congress to stop US involvement in that conflict. And amid growing calls for an investigation into the role played by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi, the US president has insisted that Washington's relations with the kingdom must not be undermined. Now, the president's also disappointed politicians on both sides of the aisle in Washington by ignoring a 120-day deadline for a report on Khashoggi's murder requested by the Senate. Right, let's speak now to Rami Khouri, who's a professor of journalism at the American University of Beirut. He's a senior fellow also at the Harvard Kennedy School, and he's joining us from Beirut. And Rami, just want to run by you a tweet by the Iranian Foreign Minister, Mohammed Javad Zarif, who says that these allegations about the transfer of nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia is hypocritical of Washington. He says, first, a dismembered journalist, now illicit sale of nuclear technology to Saudi Arabia, fully exposed US hypocrisy. I'm guessing that many people will be agreeing with the Iranian foreign minister.
Yes, many people in the region and around the world would, because there's a lot of people who are very critical of Trump and afraid of what he's doing, both to the US and to the world. The really important point here is that you now have a congressional committee led by Democrats in a House of Representatives with a majority is Democratic, officially investigating inner workings of the White House, dealing with members of Trump's family, his son-in-law, Kushner, his top advisors, linked to business dealings with Saudi Arabia and in some cases with the Emirates in a context of concern in the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives that the UAE and Saudi Arabia have been for several years trying to influence American policy through business relationships. So this closes a very difficult circle for Trump and is the beginning of a really important phase of an official investigation.
But Rami, hasn't foreign policy conducted by the United States always been influenced by US business interests all over the world, not just in the Middle East?
Yes, it has, but it has always adhered to certain safeguards. One of them is ethical standards to prevent conflicts of interest. The White House ignored these, according to the Democratic Committee report. The second one is non-proliferation safeguards, so that nuclear technology doesn't go anywhere it wants, where people want to buy it all around the world and fall into the hands of bad guys, as they call them. And the White House seems to have ignored that as well. That's the accusation. When business interests work through the system that is operational in the United States, which includes ethical and non-proliferation safeguards, the business can often get its way, which it does with arms sales and exports, and now you see it with the trade deals and things like that. But in this case, the problem is the White House has been accused, the White House and a bunch of senior former officials and military officials have been accused of ignoring these fundamental principles of American democratic practices, which include checks and balances and safeguards.
And indeed, as you point out, the sensitivity of this possible transaction is rich when you consider the fact that Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal of 2015 just last year, and which is why, of course, we've seen this tweet now from the Iranian foreign minister.
Well, that's true. And what you have to look at also is the wider context here, which is that there is deep congressional anger, especially among Democrats, but also among some Republicans, about the way that Trump has handled the Khashoggi situation, the murder and dismemberment of the late Jamal Khashoggi. And there is also congressional anger about the U.S.'s involvement in the war in Yemen, that the UAE and the Saudis are undertaking. So this just adds more difficult pressure on the White House coming from official congressional bodies. That's the real problem that the White House now faces. And with mounting public concern about the lackadaisical way that the White House deals with issues of ethics standards and following procedures for things like non-proliferation, which can have a serious global security threat.
Rami Khouri talking to us live from Beirut. Thank you.